not inappropriate. So this is the sclera. Notice it's not the fatty nastiness hanging off. It's the actual layer of the eyeball that's white. And so next to it, this cloudy part, which should be clear, it's kind of an extension of the sclera. It's on the outside. This is your cornea. So it's not the lens, it's the cornea. A lot of people get that confused, just making sure. Alright, so then we cut open this eyeball, and now we get to see what's on the inside. So we have retina. The retina is this like yellowish thin layer. It also contains that kind of opaque pigment that you see. This one has a really good retinal layer. It didn't get detached, which happens in a lot of the eyeballs. And so the retina rests on top of, and you can see it better on this half, the choroid coat, or just choroid. The choroid is dark purpley blue part that, I mean, surrounds the whole eyeball, because it's a layer. So if you were going from outside to in, layers of the eye, you have sclera, you have choroid, and then you have the retina that's on top. And so what's cool about the retina is the retina actually contains all the photoreceptors. So those are the cells that actually help you see. They take in the light, they tell you what you're seeing. Whereas the underneath layer, the choroid, it's dark, and so it actually prevents light from bouncing around. So if you think about kind of like if you're sitting in a black car in the summer, it's hot, it absorbs heat. This choroid coat is dark, so it's going to absorb the light. It's going to prevent it from bouncing.
What, the fatty stuff's the retina?
So this kind of
Gel?
yellowish, opaque kind of layer. And so in animals that see at night, if you go outside and you see eye shine, like with raccoons or cats, that's this reflective layer right here. You don't need to know it, but it's called the tapetum lucidum, and humans actually don't have it. So Raymond brought up a good point. If you see, red eyes and photos and stuff, that's something just due to the camera flash or other things. It's not actually the same thing as the tapetum lucidum. Cool.
What's that blue opalescent? That's the choroid, the bluish stuff on the bottom.
So the dark is the choroid. So this dark stuff, it's always the same color. And then this yellow, and also includes the opaque kind of greenish other stuff. That's all the retina.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
but these animals that see at night just have kind of a special color added in.
Cool.
All right. So ciliary body. Ciliary body is it looks like a mushroom. It's these, it's muscles that control lens movement. So yeah, it's not on the back half of the eye, it's on the front half of the eye, and it does. It looks like if you've ever eaten a mushroom or looked at one, or done shrooms, then maybe you know what it looks like. Yeah. So in the ciliary body, oh Lord, and I'm being recorded. These lines, the actual lines on the ciliary body are called suspensory ligaments. So, cool. Just know that the little lines on the ciliary body are called suspensory ligaments. So the iris, we can't actually see the iris really on this eye unless we were to kind of dissect the cornea off. But the iris is a colorful part of your eye. Blue, green, brown, all in between, etc. Iris is also, in the very center of it is a hole, and that's the pupil. It actually is a hole. There's nothing, no type of transparent film or whatever. It's an actual hole. And your pupil is also what dilates to let more light in, or contracts if you walk out into the sun. So then we have the lens, and the lens flops out when you cut open this eyeball, and it's this hard skittle thing, and it's opaque and hard because it's been in a bucket of chemicals. Whereas our lens, thankfully, if you don't have cataracts or other eye problems, it's clear, it's transparent. So the optic nerve, actually you can see it on this eye, but I won't be testing it on this sheep's eye. Know that it's a place where this is the optic disc. The optic disc is where the optic nerve enters the eye. This is way easier to see on models. But the optic disc is also the place where no photoreceptors are. And why that is because it's where a nerve is entering the eye. So there's no photoreceptors there. So it's also known as the blind spot. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So then opposite of the optic disc, where there's no photoreceptors, there's another spot in the eye, which you can't see in the sheep's eyeball unless I probably really dug around. It's called the fovea centralis. And the fovea centralis is where the highest accumulation of your photoreceptors are located. And so that's where your lens is really trying to focus all those rays of light onto, because it'll give you the best vision. So you can't see the fovea centralis in here, nor will I ask you optic disc in the sheep eyeball, but you do need to know it on the model. So the aqueous humor and vitreous humor. So the aqueous humor, well, first I'll point out the vitreous humor. Vitreous humor is this jelly stuff, and it often comes attached to the lens. Some of it also spills out over here, but vitreous humor, no, it's jelly-like. Whereas the aqueous humor is more consistent with water. And so you can't really see because it puddled out and it spread out, but it was the, not as jelly-like liquid that spewed out when you cut the eyeball open. And so the aqueous humor is at the very front of the eye, and it goes from the cornea to the lens, and then the whole rest of the eye, so from the lens all the way into the main part of the eye, that's your vitreous humor. And yes, it's also clear in our human eyeball, so that the light can actually come through our eyeball and we can see things. And then last is the lacrimal glands. So lacrimal glands, we can't see them here on this cow eyeball, but does anybody know what those do?
Produce tears.
Yeah, they produce tears. They make you cry. They might be on one of the models, but just know, when you cry from the inside corner kind of your eyeball, and that's where your lacrimal glands would be located. Do I have any questions?
What did you say about the optic
Do I have any
nerve?
questions? The optic nerve comes off the back of the eyeball, and that's the nerve that's going to eventually hit your brain and tell you what you're seeing.
Is the lacrimal gland the same as tear ducts?
I guess it's not the actual duct. I guess that's the thing that actually produces the tears, but
Okay.
I'm sure there's a duct on it or located on it.
Right.
If you put lacrimal duct, I'd give you credit. Cool. So that's the eye.